Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group. This is bi-weekly sync. It is May 9th, 2019. We're into May already. The year is flying by. We've got a great agenda for you here today. So we're going to start out with our engineering update about SharePoint Framework, given to us by Vesa, as well then the updates on the PnP offerings, so the client libraries, PnP JS, the Office 365 CLI, the SPFx reusable controls, and the PnP Yeoman generator. And then we have two great demos. The first from Kyle Schaeffer on a SharePoint Framework extension called My Bookmarks that he wrote. It's a very cool thing. And then Julie Turner has another neat SharePoint Framework solution around providing a multilingual pages experience, which is a really neat thing. It's got a couple different components. So excited to see both of those. And then as well, part of Vesa's update, I believe, is going to be some of the demos from Build, which he was attending this week. And just a quick note, we often get asked, why aren't we using Microsoft Teams? We will use Microsoft Teams just as soon as it supports all the things we need it to support in terms of doing these sessions, which involves being able to promote certain people to be presenters and then letting folks outside of our organization be presenters and be promoted. So there's a few limitations. We're waiting for those to be resolved, and we will move to Teams just as soon as we can. So a few opportunities to participate in the patterns and practices. You can always demo anything SPFx, so that could be a web part, an application customizer, something around provisioning, or anything you might create related to SPFx. We're always excited to see those. As well, the @PnP stuff, so always neat to see the demos. So on PnP JS, the CLI, reusable controls, or things related to the Yeoman generator. Of course, those play well with SPFx demos, so it's a great way to combine a lot of stuff into a very cool demo, and we've seen a lot of that already in the past, and I'm sure we'll see much more of that in the future. But it's very exciting to see the demos, and like I've said many, many times, I think the demos are one of the best parts of this call. Because we really do get a chance to see a lot of the great work you all are doing out there in the community, which I think is particularly interesting to me to see, and I think as well to everybody else. You can also, of course, contribute on GitHub. Lots of ways to contribute on GitHub. You can report issues, you can submit pull requests, and then as well you can help if you see issues or questions that you might be able to help out and answer. You can always jump in, and your help is always welcome on those issues, answering questions, helping out, and sometimes it gives folks a little bit faster response than necessarily waiting for someone from the core team to get around to answering that question. So appreciate always all of the help across all of the projects on GitHub. And finally, we always appreciate your feedback around all of the things we're doing across patterns and practices. So that could be about these calls that we do, about documentation needs, get feedback about other places we can help or how we can make it easier for you all to help and get involved. We're always looking at ways to smooth that path. And then as well, positive feedback is okay too. We do get a lot of we'll say constructive feedback, but positive feedback. So it's good to hear as well about what you all like about what we're doing, because it does help us, again, do more of the things people like, as opposed to just not doing the things people don't like. So appreciate all the feedback, appreciate everybody's help across all of GitHub, and then again, thank you to everybody who puts together the demos for these calls. So our updates, Vesa, I think you're back on the call.
Yeah, I'm here. So from the SharePoint engineering side, let's see. I will click on there, so I will actually get the slides moving. So first of all, quick recap: AKMS SD dev docs, the documentation, AKMS SD dev videos, all of the recordings of the community calls, demos, everything else available there. It actually crossed 10,000 subscribers last week, which is a pretty cool achievement. And after that, there's already 200 additional subscribers on that YouTube channel. So apparently, people are finding that material useful. You can find all of the getting started on SharePoint Framework development, tutorials, free material available on there as well. And then SharePoint dev issues, anything related on SharePoint development. APIs, SharePoint Framework, if you run into something, please let us know and open up an issue in the SPDev issue list, so we're able to start addressing that internally. On a quick note on that one, so every single issue on that issue list is getting redirected and copied to our internal engineering systems, and that is precisely why we want you to use that issue list. So we actually get it inside of our official process as long as you open up the issue in the issue list. So please let us know over there. Now, a few updates from the engineering side. So first of all, SharePoint Framework usage growing strong. We did have we can see let's say a normal spring break around the Eastern time frame. You can actually see that on the usage, but again, on Monday this week, we did a all-time record in both users, tenants, and actual usage on SharePoint Framework in SharePoint Online or in Office 365 in general. So the usage is way out of any metrics and any estimations which we were thinking of having SharePoint Framework 2 years after it has been released. So adoption has been tremendous, and thank you for everybody for contributing also on this success as well, because your input is driving the next steps of the SharePoint Framework. So super important thing. Quick updates, what has happened. So last week we released, actually this week, I think it was Tuesday, we pushed out SharePoint Framework 1.8.2. And this one was a small maintenance release, but it actually did also include official support for Node.js version 10 and a few other adjustments. So there was a few, let's say, regressions in 1.8 release of SharePoint Framework, and which we are now getting addressed with the small releases. The 1.9 release is currently planned to happen in early June, so that is slightly always, well, it depends on what we find and what are the issues which we are able to address. What's really cool about the 1.8.2, it also addressed some of the requests and understandable requests related on Azure AD and Graph usage from, for example, from Microsoft Teams desktop client and a mobile client. So all of that functionality should be now working properly. So you are able to use Graph APIs through SharePoint Framework using Teams mobile client or Teams desktop client and so on. So that should be really, really great change. On the official support on Node.js, thank you, Oscar, for asking that. So 8 is still fully supported, but sooner or later we will reduce the support for Node.js to 8. So looking into moving to 10 should be the right way of thinking this. It doesn't actually change anything inside of the solution for you, so everything should be working as long as you're upgrading to the latest version of SharePoint Framework. And if you're looking into doing that, please have a look on the Office 365 CLI, because it will give you step-by-step guidance on how do I upgrade from whatever versions you're using to the latest version of SharePoint Framework. A few kind of updates on the roadmap side of the things. So obviously 1.8.2 went live this week. 1.9 is now planned to go live in early June. And we're moving into this model where we want to actually release one version once a month. So basically, if a functionality or feature inside of engineering is not ready, then it's going to be postponed for next month. But we will be looking into doing this kind of a known cadence on releasing SharePoint Framework. Now that, how would I put it? It's more mature, and the basic scenarios which were planned to do, the initial scenarios are already there. So now we're moving more on this additional once a month, let's add additional value, additional capabilities, extensibility, and all of that in. And you will then know when the new version is always coming, which will probably help you to manage your internal processes as well. So that's something which we've been planned to go, well, to do sooner or later anyway on SharePoint Framework. Additional content extension placeholders, content security policy, open sourcing out-of-the-box Yeoman generator. For that one, we don't have a timing. We're looking into doing that as well. And that one then will impact on the existing PnP Yeoman generator. So we'll figure out how do we do those together as well. Store and App Store story for SharePoint Framework is in progress as well. I can't give you any actual insights on that one, but it is actually progressing. So we get that one sorted out, hopefully within, how would I put it, in months rather than in a year. So we're finally getting to the moment where you can build your own SharePoint Framework solutions and put it in the store and then offer that for the customers using the SharePoint UIs. And that's a really cool thing. More details obviously on that one whenever we can share more additional things. One thing what I wanted to quickly show in here, and if whatever reason, Patrick, you can't actually pick up my screen sharing, I will record that as a separate video then for the video recording. But let me share my desktop, and what I wanted to actually quickly do, thank you Sky for warning that if I share my desktop, people can see what I'm actually sharing. Interesting. So what we did in the build as a kind of an additional demo for builds, and somebody needs to, by the way, confirm that you are seeing my screen, is the demo around something which we talked about a few times in this course as well. So we're looking into extending SharePoint Framework to be used as a development platform and development framework for more than just SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. So now we're looking into extending this to Office add-ins, and this is a relatively early, rough demo, but it gives you the idea of where we are with this one. We are actually already at the moment of these things barely working also already in desktop clients, but we're adding additional capabilities like Outlook, adding build using SPFx before we can release this one for you. But relatively simple demo. I can see that people can actually see on the conversation that you can actually see my screen. Patrick, just out of curiosity, did you get it as well?
Yep, I got it.
Awesome. So get it recorded. Now, so like I said, relatively rough demo. It's not super polished, but here I'm opening up my task pane, and this is actually a SharePoint Framework sample task pane. Relatively simple demo, like mentioned. So I can do something like I can do a search on the document and do a search, and it will actually highlight and then the text in the document. So we're using Office JS inside of the SharePoint Framework solution to talk directly to the document. And then also I can go to the replace view. So this is again SharePoint Framework web part technically right now, but it's going to be called something else whenever we get to that moment. And I can do something like let's flip Earth to Mars, which hopefully doesn't happen. And I can actually do those replacements. Well, that didn't work out that well, but let me actually show the other one. Or I can actually communicate to SharePoint Online by clicking the Get Code Words. So all of the connectivity between your tenant is available, all of the Graph API access, all of the management, all of the simple deployment, all of the Azure AD securely callable APIs, all of that is available in these panels as well. As long as you're authenticated against your tenant, you're able to authenticate and operate this stuff. And in this case, let's do something simple. You can see here somebody's using most 2007 words or MS Exchange, and those are not official words, so I can absolutely do a replacement, and that will then change these code words based on that mapping. So the most has been changed with Office SharePoint Server. Here we go, 2007, and then there was Microsoft MS Exchange has been changed to Microsoft Exchange. Simple demos, a relatively rough demo like mentioned, but this basically shows that we're using the Office JS inside of the SharePoint Framework solution, and then we're able to communicate between the Office documents, and also whenever we get this live, also together with, you can use SharePoint Framework to build Outlook add-ins as well. So you can then easily build these Office add-ins without worrying deployment, without worrying hosting, without worrying the typical challenges what people are having, which is by the way exactly the same reasons why we introduced the Microsoft Teams with SharePoint Framework. So you don't have to worry about the deployment, hosting, management, governance, and all of that, because everything is taken care of by the SharePoint Framework capabilities. Now, potentially, I can't promise this for sure. We're looking into getting this one. We're planning into getting this one as a release to preview as part of the 1.9 release. And then your feedback is super important. So we need to understand: is it an interesting scenario? Is it something what you would make you feel more interested in building Office add-ins if you can actually use the same code base and same technologies for those as well. And obviously this one is a contextual implementation, so in the same way as with Microsoft Teams tabs, you can get access on the document. You know always that am I hosted as a web part in a SharePoint page as a Microsoft Teams tab, or am I actually hosted as a task pane in this case. And also the contextual what are their content add-ins are going to be supported as well. So you're able to have add-ins inside of the documents. So that's really cool as well. But whenever we get to the preview, like mentioned, I'm going to stop recording. Sharing. Whenever we get to the preview, hopefully in 1.9 version, please do give us feedback using the feedback channels, which will be available at that point, so we can show the interest of the community towards this kind of functionalities as well. But pretty cool and it's in a good status already. It's great to see actually the interest also in the IM chat window around this one. But that's all on my side. So Patrick, let's jump on you.
All right. So, updates on the PnP JS client-side libraries. Let's talk V2. So we are pretty well focused now on preparing for the version 2 release. A lot of work has been done behind the scenes there, but now we're sort of rolling that out publicly, so to speak. There's a new branch. You'll see dev-v2. That branch is in no way compatible with the previous dev branch. So if you're going to submit pull requests and things to PnP JS, please be aware and please focus on submitting to the correct branch. If you are still developing for V1 or want to submit something for V1, please absolutely do so. Just submit that as normal to the dev branch, just dev dev branch. If you'd like to help us work on the V2 work, we have just created, or Simon and David have just created a whole ton of issues. So if you've looked at the issues list there lately, you will see, 80-some new issues, well, not 80-some new issues, but 80-some total issues, and many of those are related to 2.0, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the future on how to help out. But if you check out those issues, you'll see, and I'm not going to go through each of these bullet points, but you will see sort of a checklist of the tasks to do for each of the submodules. So we'll be providing a little more guidance, but if you want to get involved and want to help out, and you see one of those issues you might be interested in working on, say SharePoint features, just as a random example, just go ahead into that issue, comment on that issue, and say, hey, I want to help out with this. We will get you assigned so that there's no confusion and we aren't duplicating work. We'll get you assigned, and then if you ever have questions, and this goes for anybody, just comment in that same issue, and we'll be there to help you out. And Julie, Simon, and David will also be helping out with that. So if you get a response from one of those three or myself, we're all sort of trying to help coordinate with managing this. So this is a bit of me admitting I don't have the time to completely manage this on my own, and Julie, Simon, and David have jumped in and offered to help out. So very much appreciate that help from them to help manage this. And there is a ton of room, as David says there in the chat, there is a ton of room for folks to help out here and have a real impact in getting V2 out the door. As I've said before, I think on this call, or maybe not, V2 is less about amazing new technical features and all about paying off a lot of our technical debt from the previous years. So making sure we've got tests, making sure we've got documentation, making sure we do some code cleanup and stuff like that. There will be some very cool tech stuff which we will talk about in the future, but that is what skill roles do you need? All skill roles. So if you are a developer, we'd love to have your help developing. If you are just a documentation document writer, technical writer, sorry, brain not braining currently. If you're a technical writer and you still want to help out, please reach out. Let us know. We can certainly make use of your skills, find a way to get you involved. So I'd rather, if you want to help and aren't sure how, just reach out. We'll find a way to get you involved. So don't worry too much about that. And we are here, all of us, to help get folks lined up and able to contribute as efficiently as possible. And we will have a beta coming soon. A little winky face there, because if you're paying attention, there might already be a 2.0 beta out there in the world. But just a heads up, no support on 2.0 betas yet. Please, at this point, do not submit issues for the 2.0 beta. It's not released. It's really an alpha version. But you can pull that down and play with it. We don't have docs for it yet. We're working on that. So we're really starting to ramp this up, and things will start to get a little bit more solid over the next couple weeks. And we are looking for sometime mid-summer release for V2. No hard dates yet because we will not release until we have all the tests and all the docs written for V2. So that's our real focus, is making sure we get that with a real solid release. Will there be compatibility with older versions? They will not work side to side. It is a brand new version, so you'll either use stuff from the 1 tree or the version 2 tree, but your existing code, and we'll have a guide just as we have had in the past when we do major version releases on how to migrate. So the goal, as always, is your existing code will have no or minimal changes to move to 2.0. So we're going to do our best there, but with certain considerations in place, because there are some changes. There may be some breaking changes, and that, is why it's a V2 and not a 1 dot something else. So there will be some breaking changes, but again, as always, we aim to minimize those completely as much as possible. So current documentation for the 1.0 stuff is still always at pnp.github.io/pnpjs. You can follow the PnP JS hashtag on Twitter, and you can always follow me at MediocreBowler on Twitter. And with all the focus on 2.0, I did want to mention that again, for the month of April, we were over 3 billion requests on the library into SPO. So we continue to see the great usage and the great growth. And to give you a little bit of insight into my thinking, this level of growth really pushed me to say we need to have the docs and the tests and all this stuff and really solidify things for the library moving forward, because we've seen such phenomenal growth over the last over the last 8 years. 8 years. Wow, 8 months. So it's really time, I think, to really sit down and solidify the library and really make it a lot easier to get in, use, and understand. And a big thank you, as always, to everybody that's helped out on that journey. Updates for the Office 365 CLI. No rabbits were harmed in the making of that slide. New version released for the Office 365 CLI. This is 1.19. Support for upgrading your SPFx project. So already has support for upgrading to the new 1.8.2 of SPFx. And then enable, as well as new features around enabling communication sites, renewing Office 365 group exploration, removing users from groups, upgrading your SharePoint projects to 1.8.1, and then, which is now 1.8.2 as well. Sorry, I should have taken that bullet point out. And then also as well, now handling throttling and gzip compression. In progress, more commands for Teams, Flow, Power Apps, and SharePoint, simplifying the login experience, as well as improving the command name consistency. You can always install the latest beta, npm install-g/@pnp/office365-cli @next, and then more information at aka.ms/os365cli. And hashtag Office365CLI on Twitter. And there's a Gitter channel, and as well, again, the docs link there in the corner. If you haven't tried out the CLI, it's a really fantastic cross-platform way to manage your SharePoint assets. It really is super helpful with your SPFX projects, especially I say this, the capability of upgrading your projects alone makes this a super valuable tool, and then you get all the administrative capabilities as well. So if you haven't checked this out, do please check it out. It's another great tool to have in your tool bag for SPFx development. Updates on the reusable controls. New release 1.13.1 of the React controls. These are the controls designed to be used in the body of your web parts. So just really kind of a maintenance release. Couple of fixes: web part title, fix for the class name property, and a rich text fix for an issue with the control turning drop-downs black. Special thanks to Hugo for contributing on this release. And then as well, there's two links down there at the bottom. The first is to the property controls, and the I should have said this at the top, but there's two sets of reusable React controls distributed here. The first is a set of property controls that really help in your edit pane allow you to create rich editing experiences with little effort. So drop these in, use them. They're already styled with the Office UI fabric, so it's going to look very out of the box and blend in to your SharePoint designs, and allow you to provide a rich editing experience for your web parts. And then as well, there's a second set of controls more designed for the body of your web part. So these display data in graphs, allow people to interactively view information and things like that. So very useful, and really, again, a great way to jumpstart your SPFx development, whether it's web parts or application customizers. You can get a lot of great functionality by simply importing these libraries and dropping the controls into your React projects. So really exciting to see these continue to grow. Thanks to Hugo again, and thanks to everybody else. There's been a whole lot of other folks that have contributed in the past to these. So great to see. And again, if you're looking to get involved and you like writing controls, this is a great project within the PnP sphere, the PnP cinematic universe, to get involved in. And the latest addition, for folks that might not have heard about it, is our PnP generator. So this is a Yeoman generator built on top of the out-of-the-box SharePoint Framework generator. So you're going to get a real, in quotes, real SharePoint Framework project with all the same backing code, dependencies, and so forth that you would by using the standard out-of-the-box SharePoint Framework generator. But this one builds on top of that and provides you the ability to include some extra stuff and use different frameworks that might not be or that aren't supported by the out-of-the-box one, things such as Vue and handlebars and stuff like that. So again, would ask folks, please stay on mute. Let me find that person. Mute. There we go. So if you get a chance, do check this out. It's a great way to jumpstart, again, your SharePoint Framework development. And we have a new version out, 1.7.2, that has an update to the latest. Again, we're just cutting edge, updated to the latest out-of-the-box generator behind the scenes, 1.8.2. It has the upgraded support for the Office 365, the latest Office 365 CLI. We did drop support for the 2.x versions of jQuery, updated the Vue and TypeScript support, and as well includes the latest for PnP JS, the reusable controls, the React controls, the CLI, and is upgraded now to jQuery 3.4.1. Additionally, in progress, updates for the Azure DevOps CI using Jest instead of Mocha, selecting the TypeScript version, as well as modularization of the gulp file injection. To install the latest version, install -g at pnp/generator-spfx. You can find more information at aka.ms/pnp-generator, and then hashtag PnP SPFx generator on Twitter. And this is, again, if you like to do Yeoman development, if you're interested in scaffolding things and improving that experience, another way for you to get involved in PnP and get a little bit deeper involved and contribute there if that happens to strike your fancy. So moving forward, we've got our demos. So Kyle, if you are ready to go and want to take over the presentation, excited to see your My Bookmarks extension. Julie is up for our next demo.
All right. Well, so I'm planning on only doing a demo because there's a lot of work here and not spend very much time at all looking at code. But basically, we're talking about in the SPDev Solutions repo, the multilingual pages solution. And so there's a big long README in here that's going to go through a lot of what I'm going to demo today, but that's what we're talking about. And so the other thing I want to just point out before I lose time on it is at the SharePoint conference in a couple of weeks, I will be demoing this again, and DC Pitar from Microsoft will be giving some roadmap for Microsoft's plans on multilingual. So I just wanted to sort of give a shout out to that session, because I'm sure for the people who are really interested in multilingual, that's going to give you a lot of insight to what's happening. Okay, so this is a SharePoint Framework solution built on the 1.7 version of the framework. We have not updated it yet. This was originally built for the Shire/Takeda pharmaceutical merger that happened this last fall, where they had a need for multilingual, and so between David Feldman, who's another MVP, and myself, we designed this solution, and then I built the extension, and another guy named Scott Hillier, who many of you have probably heard of, built the redirector web part that goes with this solution. So basically, once you add the application to your site collection, it builds itself out by adding some site columns and to the site information panel. So let me go show this, view all site settings. And if we go into site columns, we can see that it adds some site columns that support this multilingual solution. So you have a language folder, so which folder is the page in, which variants of the languages does this page support, when was it last synced from the page that is defined as the master, what is the master translation page's ID, and if there's a redirector page, what is that URL, and then we add all those site columns to the site page content type in here, so that every page in your site pages library gets those properties. And so this is done on a site collection by site collection basis. And so if I come back to my home here and then go into pages library, the other thing it does is then provision these folders. Now these folders come from a tenant app property that has a JSON blob that defines the languages, and I'm hoping I can quickly come up with this. Whoops, that's not what I want. I want the network tab, and if I do a quick get storage entity, and so we're getting the storage entity, which is the language configuration, and you can see the value in here has a JSON blob that defines all the languages we're going to support in this tenant. Okay, so shutting that down, we've got a folder for every language, and right now this is a pretty empty site pages library. I only have the home page in here, but I also did go ahead and I have the all pages library where I added my properties so I could see it, and then I also created a flat view so that I could see it flattened by library, and that sometimes helps so that you can see what pages you have going on. So now, if we go ahead and create a new site page, you're going to get a new page, and so if I just call this PnP demo, and I am one of those Americans who knows no other languages other than English, or although I like to tell people I speak 6 languages, they're just programming ones. So this is an English page, and so I will put some content on there, and I'm going to save that as a draft. And then what I have down here is that the extension that we have on the page is putting a footer placeholder in here, which is this selector. And this selector shows up, or this functionality shows up when the page that you are on is at the root of the site pages library. So what I can do then is decide what the master language is for this particular page and move it into that folder. And like I said, I speak English, so I'm going to start with the English translation, and then I'm going to say I want to move the page. It confirms I want to move the page, and I put it over into that folder. And if we go back here and look, we now have this PnP demo page, and it gets automatically assigned all the languages. And so this language variant column is something that you can create as a managed properly then. And so you can use like the highlighted content web part and or the PnP search web part to create a way that you can filter up content to other pages based on the languages you want to show. So by default, every page gets tagged with all the languages you support. And if we come back over here, we can now see that we have this multilingual not configured indicator down here. And if I go into edit mode, I get a language details button. When I get the language details, I can then see, okay, we haven't started a translation of this. We are identifying this page, the master translation, as English, and we can get more information about this page, like that it's not published and who modified it and when it was last synced with the master. And then I can say what languages I want it to be in. So I can pick Japanese and German, for instance. This redirector page piece I'll show a little later, but this basically will create a separate page in the home page or in the home root of the site pages library that has the redirector web part on it that is configured to when you come to the page, it knows based on the settings, either the regional settings or the tenant settings or the user's personal language settings, and or it falls back all the way to the browser settings of which language the user wants to see. And if there is a translation that matches their language, it will redirect them to that translation. Otherwise, it will stick to the master translation. So we're going to go ahead and hit apply language changes. And this can take a few minutes, so fast today. And so now we have some translations out there. So if I come back to the flats page, we can see that now our PnP demo, the English one, is supporting all of these languages, where we have copies now for German and Japanese in their respective folders. And so we can come back and save this page, save this as draft. We could then publish it. If we want to, that's not really important right now. But then the user experience for users that come to this page would be that they get this selector that allows them to switch languages if they want. So it shows them what language they're in, but if for whatever reason, maybe their language settings are set to English, but they're native Japanese speakers and want to see the Japanese translation, they can come down here and say, okay, well, I want to go to the Japanese translation. Okay, so you can tell now that I'm in the Japanese folder here, and because I'm an editor, I'm going to edit this page, and I can now say this is the Japanese page, and I could do something else to sort of make it stand out so that we can really see that this is a different page. And so I can make that change, and let's save that as a draft, and let's even publish that. And so now we can see we're on the Japanese page, but if I come back over to the English page, excuse me, and we edit this page, we can see on the language details under the Japanese version that this version has been modified since the last time it was synced. It is published. And we're seeing this new translator comments section here. So what the functionality is here is that if we want to change the English version and say, and change this and save it, and then we decide that we want to, whoops, that was already open. If we want to retranslate it, we can then just say, you know, changed text. Needs retranslation, and that's not how you spell it. Well, that's okay. Oh, that's because it wants a hyphen. Okay, so we can do that, and what will happen then is for the German page, because we haven't changed it, it actually will replace the German page, and for the Japanese page, it's going to send an email to this person here with the translator comments in it, letting them know that the master page has been changed and that we need some retranslation. There is also the ability to replace all existing pages. So if you have a massive redo of a page, you could just override all of the changes and apply it to every single translation. So if I apply this change, and it doesn't take too long, and we publish, yep, I know. and then I come back over to the Japanese version, we're going to see we're still in the way the Japanese version was, but if we go to the German version, we can see that it's still unchanged and that we haven't really done anything with that. So if we come back to the English version one more time, and I go into edit mode, and I add a redirector page, we can see that we're going to get a URL here that is in the root of the site pages library. So I'm going to apply this change. And I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait. This actually takes a little bit of time because it's actually using the awesome code that Patrick reverse engineered to do the client pages library in the PnP JS. So that was super helpful. I was ecstatic to see that he had done all that work for me and I didn't have to do it. So now if I put this page in, we're going to see a quick blink, but then it's taken me to the English version of this page. If I put this back in here and put stay equals true in here, then the web part knows to stay on the page, and I can, it's donations. Yes, I know, I should absolutely donate to you because that saved me a ton of time. So now I can see that this web part started telling us what it was trying to do, what it was trying to take us to, and we can edit it and look at what the redirects are, and can see that for Japanese it's going to try to take you to the Japanese page, for German it's going to take me to the German page, and for everything else it's going to redirect back to the English page. So this is a way that you can have a link to one page that will take you to whatever language for whatever user. So if you need to have a link in like a navigational menu or something like that, this is a handy way to make that work so that you can get the redirects to the right pages. You can also add this web part manually to any page and configure it, but the extension will configure it for you. So you don't really have to know how to do this. I just wanted to show what it was doing under the covers, that this was getting created. But the users don't have to know about this. They don't have to configure it. It's all done by clicking that little slider in the extension to send them to the redirector. So where was I? So over here. Back over here, it's all managed through this redirector page. So as I add new translations and apply those changes, because this redirector page is here, the redirector page will get updated with the new translations, and as you take things off and add things on, that all will just happen. So yeah, I've got 2 minutes, and there was one other thing I wanted to show. There is, from a code perspective, let me see if I can get up here. So this is the code base. We have the multilingual extension. We have the redirector. The one thing I wanted to point out on this extension is that there is, on the init, there is some code in here to handle some issues that are in SharePoint Framework about page loads across site collections. Now, I sort of understand this was supposed to be fixed, but I am currently not seeing it be fixed. So let me just minimize this again and show. I've got this second multilingual site. And you can see that it loaded here, and let me just refresh the page really quick. And so it's loaded here, but if I navigate to my original multilingual homepage, you'll notice we're getting 2s in here. And what we were finding is that the extension would load between 2 and 4 times on the bottom of the page. So we have some code in there to manage that, so that's what that's for, and I just wanted to point that out. So that was 1 minute left.
Really great stuff. Thank you very much for that. Let me try and get back to the slides so we can close out. Really impressive demos today. A great sample there from Kyle from what's possible, and then I think from Julie, a really outstanding solution that, while complicated, is a great way to handle what is a complicated problem and topic. So sometimes that goes hand in hand, but really fantastic stuff from both of you. Thank you very much for those demos. As always, if you'd like to demo on a future call, please just reach out and let us know. Our next SharePoint Framework JavaScript SIG will be May 23rd, and that will be a great call then. Expect some PnP JS 2.0 updates. General SharePoint Dev SIG will be next Thursday, May 16th. Look forward to seeing everybody there as well. And as always, learn, reuse, and share. Thank you all for joining the call. Very much appreciate it. Everybody have a great rest of your week. No time for Q&A today. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.